The question of moving to her mother-in-law's house sounded like a thunderclap to Irina. Nina Ilyinichna suddenly began to complain about her health. She begged to move in with her, who, if not the children, will give a glass of water in old age, lamented the woman, grasping the sick heart, and she stubbornly waved away the nurse. Why is it that strangers will hang around my apartment? They'll take something else. No, son, now people are like that. It's scary to go out on the street. People were kinder in our time. They didn't even know about locks. Nobody locked their houses. And now you're afraid to open the door. Only drug addicts are wandering around. The last thing Irina wanted was to live under the same roof with her mother-in-law. Relationships were not that strained, they were nothing. Already on the first day of their acquaintance, 8 years ago, Nina Ilyinichna made it clear who she is by nature. Cunning, power, hungry. She sought to control every step of her son, and now her daughter-in-law. The woman did not tolerate objections, did not accept the word no. And if she received a refusal in response to her unsolicited advice, then sorrowful brokenness exclaimed about the ingratitude of children. For 2 years, Irina kept at a distance, but at the same time desperately tried to establish relations with her mother-in-law to find an approach to her. However, she seemed to deliberately torment daughter-in-law. At first punishments pestered, that the wedding, as she wants to organize, or we'll manage the household as she said. Irachka, the soup must be rich, thick and nutritious. Valera likes it that way. Oh, you, a man needs meat, not just chowder. You should have fed him raw beets. You're not smart or clever, and this on someone else's territory, as a guest. Her husband kept silent and ran away at every emerging conflict, and Irina could not stand it. One day could not stand it. Politely thanked her mother-in-law for wise instructions, but firmly insisted that more Nina Ilyinichna did not interfere in their family. Since then, the mother-in-law became angry. Irachka, you must have gained weight or what? Laughed Nina Ilyinichna. No, my daughter, this will not do. You should lose weight. So many beautiful girls on the streets flaunt. They'll steal your Valera. Mark my word. Irina skeptically looked at her mother-in-law. Obese woman, no less than 100 kilograms. She herself was eating the 30 Claire, sitting in her kitchen. The daughter-in-law had time to regret 100 times that let her in the door. Irachka, you're completely crazy. A married woman, and dressed like a highway. I'm sorry. Oh, my God, what a neckline. All your soul inside out. You want a man's attention, and Valeri's was not enough. Irina shuddered from the creaky voice that sounded behind her back. Like a mute fish, the woman opened her mouth, but could not find even a couple of profane words. Her eyes stared angrily at her mother-in-law. Such insolence she had never met before. And Nina Ilyinichna, pleased with the reaction of her daughter-in-law, defiantly tsk and shook her head, and then went to the kitchen, purposely loud grumbling under her nose. I told my son. Look at her, come to your senses. After all, you can see not a girl long ago. That's in our time. No connection before marriage was out of the question. It was a terrible sin. People were smarter, closer to God. And my father and I brought up our children that way. But Valera had the misfortune to get involved with you. Ugh. Irina angrily hissed and threw her sweater out of her hands. It crumpled and landed on the sofa. The woman flew into the kitchen after the seemingly unperturbed mother-in-law. Well, Nina Ilyinichna, this is too much. What right do you have to insult me and accuse me of such things? I'm your son's wife and the mother of your granddaughter. Have some respect. You yourself, Irachka, dishonored yourself. Nodded mother-in-law, without raising her head. She was ashamed, but she didn't want to admit it, so she continued to bend her line. There was nothing to go out before the wedding and hang on to men. Irina suddenly laughed, and mother-in-law finally raised her eyes and stared in surprise at her daughter-in-law. And your Alessia also girl married? And then Lesha gave birth 6 months later. Tell me too. Mother-in-law choked on air. Alessia, her daughter, did get married pregnant, but Nina Ilyinichna tried to hide it from everyone. She was afraid of shame, so she ran around the guests at the wedding and wailed. They said, oh, how Alessia has gained weight. Oh, how she has gained weight. Not finding what to say, mother-in-law agitated and clucked like a hen. You do not touch my Alessia? Don't touch her, I said. It's none of your business. "Oh, you'd better keep quiet, Nina Ilyinichna." Irina sighed and left the kitchen, buttoning her shirt. And after all this, to live with her in the same apartment. However, her husband insisted on moving. For the 5th year they lived on the territory of her mother-in-law in a large 3-room apartment. That was the end of the pluses. It was a real hell. They moved in with Valera and made repairs for 6 months. It was inconvenient, mother after all. And Nina Ilyinichna was always dissatisfied, grumbling, "That's not right for her. That's not right for her." Even her husband couldn't stand it. He shouted so much that the neighbors heard. Irina kept quiet. She tried to live wisely to stay out of family conflicts, but her nerves soon gave out. One evening Irina could not find her favorite shirt. Silk, black, fitted with a beautiful V-neck, visually elongating the neck. The one my mother-in-law hated. I asked my mother-in-law directly if Nina Ilyinichna had found it missing. Maybe it was in the laundry and she didn't notice. "I threw away your rag." Her mother-in-law shocked her. I kept silent, but I couldn't stand it. "I'm sorry, Barachta, but it is not appropriate to walk in such debauchery. You should be ashamed of your husband." That's when Irina was carried away. Even the plates flew into the wall. And the mother-in-law immediately complained to her son. But this time Irina was not going to bend, also told her husband everything in the hope that he at least this time to intercede. But the husband habitually waved his hand and, referring to fatigue after work, fell on the sofa. After the scandal, Nina Ilyinichna did not restrain for 2 weeks, threatened to throw unstable daughter-in-law out of the house. She called her a scandalizer, shouted that she had broken all her dishes. Neighbors every day gathered on the bench at the entrance to listen to another story about the abnormal daughter-in-law. "Oh, my fool Valera. Oh, my fool," she lamented, sitting with neighbors under the porch, so that the whole yard could hear. "My daughter-in-law is completely crazy. At home commands, yells at me. She can raise her hand, and how she dresses. Her skirt is all over the place. Her breasts are out of place." I said, "Where are you going?" And she keeps snorting. "I'm taking Sonia to daycare. Stay out of it." Good God. How can you take a child to daycare like that? I'm lying here before I go to bed and I'm thinking, no, there's something wrong here. She's probably looking for men. She wants to steal someone else's daddy, since she's going to kindergarten like that. I keep trying to talk sense into her. I'm trying to talk to her with a soul. She's like my own daughter, but all to no avail. However, as soon as the neighbors parted, Nina Ilyinichna sharply ceased to be a victim. One evening, she did not hesitate, grabbed her sister-in-law by the sleeve and pushed to the exit. "Get out of my apartment." Mother-in-law's eyes were like animal eyes. "Valer, calm your mother," Irina shouted in despair. "Take this crazy woman away from me while I keep myself in control." "Oh, how she spoke. How she spoke," laughed Nina Ilyinichna, but once again pushed her daughter-in-law did not dare. She is in control. And if she hadn't, then what? What would she have done? Hit her, come on, come on, come on. "Mommy." A frightened Sonechka ran out of the room. She was holding a stuffed bunny in her hands and looked fearfully at her screaming grandmother. After the girl, her father staggered out into the corridor. He didn't seem to be in any hurry. "He doesn't care about anything," Irina summarized to herself. "What are you looking at?" indignantly exclaimed the woman and snatched from the clutches of her mother-in-law's forearm. "The mother of your child is treated like cattle, and you stand there and remain silent. Calm your mother down, now." The man sighed tiredly and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Nina Ilyinichna hummed and turned to her son. "Valera, say a word." "Calm down, Irina. Your screams are already making my head buzz. As I do not come from work, then a new scandal? And every time you start it, you should be ashamed of yourself. Mom is a sick person. She has a weak heart. And you, every day, then an old man is being rude? Calm down, both of you, and go to your rooms. I've said it all." The woman choked on the air out of indignation. She caught the haughty, satisfied look of her mother-in-law. "You'll know how to turn my son against me," whispered the mother-in-law. "Valera is not like that. He is a smart man, does not hold on to the skirt. There are many women in the world, but mother is one for life." And with these words Nina Ilyinichna went to her room. Sonechka, hiding behind the closet, ran out to her mother. Irina hugged her daughter and began to calm her down. Although her eyes were wet, her lips were trembling, her hands too. At that moment something broke in her soul. The hope that someday things would change was dead forever. Her husband had finally disappointed her. She pulled on her fall shoes and stepped out of the house for some air. "Oh, you're going out to meet men," came a whisper from behind her. Cars whizzed by at breakneck speed. The wet sidewalk was covered with puddles. Irina leisurely weaved down the street, looking under her feet. She was thinking. Thoughts of divorce first visited her a year ago, and all this time they occasionally flashed in her head like white noise. Now the woman was thinking about it seriously. Life with a vampire mother-in-law and a spineless husband was like hell. She was young, beautiful, full of ambition. It was her husband who once long ago locked her in four walls with a child, saying, "I am a man, Adur. I will be able to provide our family with everything we need. And you, Irochka, leave work. Home will be engaged in the house." If she only knew how everything would turn out. And maybe, really, to give up everything, get a job, put aside money for a rented house. Thankfully, there is education, Sonia in kindergarten, and then upset the household by demanding a divorce. Take Sonechka. Don't let my mother-in-law see her granddaughter, at least for the first time. If she wants to babysit Sonia, let her learn to respect her mother. And then we'll see how life turns out. God knows, maybe a worthy man will meet. Irina involuntarily smiled. This arrangement suited her. He sounded like a wonderful revenge for all those years of humiliation and wasted nerves that she experienced in marriage, with Valera and Nina Ilynichnaya going to him in a set. Yes, she would divorce. Definitely, she will divorce. She will finally take her life into her own hands. It's been 2 months. The woman went to the registry office and filed the divorce papers, and in the evening shocked her husband and mother-in-law with this news. "I'm taking Sonia, if you're interested." Irina nonchalantly packed her things in a suitcase. She tried not to pay attention to the shocked looks of her husband and mother-in-law. "How can it be, Irochka? Take Sonia away? Where to?" "It's none of your business, Nina Ilyinichna." "Ira, explain what's going on. What divorce? How did you come up with this nonsense? We were fine." Valera tried to grab the things out of his wife's hands, but she was adamant. She had already said everything she thought about them. "Well, my mother and I overreacted a little, and I was a fool. Or whatever they say. Yes, I admit it. She won't bother you anymore." "Mother, tell me." "I won't, Irochka. Here's a cross for you." Nina Ilyinichna defiantly crossed herself. "You stay here. Valera's right. I overreacted. Well, forgive me, old girl. My head can't think straight anymore." Irina remained silent. She gave her husband and mother-in-law a skeptical, a little haughty look, and rolled the suitcase out into the corridor. They followed her. "Sonechka, run. Let's get dressed." The blonde girl ran out of her room with a smile. "Have you already packed your suitcase?" Irina squatted down near Sonia. She shyly averted her gaze and nodded. "God, where will you go?" Nina Ilyinichna did not calm down. Tears came to her eyes. "The child will be hungry, abandoned. The child will be with a loving mother, Nina Ilyinichna," Irina firmly stated. "And not with, I would say, but I don't want to in front of Sonechka." The woman looked furtively at her husband. He still stood aloofly, leaning against the door jamb, and folded his arms across his chest. He did nothing to stop his wife. Irina did not regret her decision to leave him. How she wanted to call him a spineless loser, but only in front of his daughter was uncomfortable. Irina opened the door. She told Sonia to wave goodbye to her father and grandmother, but she herself did not even look in their direction. Without the slightest hesitation, the woman left the hated apartment. Now she was ready for a new life.